Good day, everyone. Today we have an interview with two more athletes from the Spartan Games. We've got Rea Kolbl, who's won World's Toughest Mudder twice. That's a 24-hour plus event. She did Eco Challenge Fiji. That's a multi-day event. And we've also got Corinna Coffin, who was sponsored this year by DECA before DECA went away, super short course. And she crushed TMX, winning it the first year, second the second year. So two extremes who were both up there this weekend. Really quickly, want to remind you that we've got a bunch of other episodes up this week, and the podcast is up. We've got a bunch of great episodes there, so we'll include links below for that. But here's Rea and Corinna. Away we go. What you thought it was going to be like to what it ended up being like. Did it meet or beat your expectations? Did it disappoint your expectations?
I guess there's a twofold answer to that. So it was like so fun. It was so amazing to just be there and like be able to hug people and run with people and like have like some sort of like pre-COVID life for like 4 days. And it was really fun. Even the things that like I was bad at, it was so fun to watch. So in that way, it was like exceeded my expectations. On the other hand, I asked Nathan when he was like, do you want to come? And I was like, well, I haven't been in the gym since March and I'm not very like gym fit. But like, if it's like more like outside stuff, then yes, I definitely want to come. And he's like, oh, you didn't have to, like, you're going to do fine. You're going to do great. And then there was like 160-pound deadlifts and like DECA strong and DECA strong, stronger. And just a lot of the things that, yes, you totally should have been in the gym at least a few times since March. So in that way, it was like very different than what I expected. I kind of expected to be like, we show up and like Joe makes us do things and we get no sleep. And it's like 4 days of like nonstop and like, you know, like not like actually like structured events. So in that way, it was very different.
Corinna, I was just asking how the event went versus expectations. Did it meet your expectations, beat your expectations, or disappoint your expectations?
I think it was beyond my expectations. I mean, that's a lot of people to manage and a lot of organization to happen. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to think about what I thought about going into this because it was just such a packed 4 days. Yeah, but I think they really did a really good job. And I mean, I only knew a handful of the events. Like I knew there was going to be mountain biking. I knew there was going to be, or some sort of biking. I knew there was going to be some sort of DECA involvement, some sort of rock, a swim. But that's, yeah, I didn't think the days were going to be so packed like that. The 5 hour and the 6 hour bike and run really took up obviously a huge chunk of the day. So, you know, to have more stuff on top of that was you know, we were exhausted. We went to bed exhausted every day. So I don't know, I think they did a good job with organization, and you know, there was definitely some hiccups or things that could have run a little bit smoother, and I know we weren't super timely as athletes. So they were really good about I mean, considering our group and hey, let's be here at this time, and then we were a bit later. I think they did a pretty good job of flexing and adapting and doing what they could to stay on track.
I think preparation wise, I get the impression they told people whatever they wanted to hear. Like if you were an endurance athlete, there's going to be so much running. Don't worry about the strength stuff. And if you were a strong person, they were like, you're just going to lift, not a lot of running. You know what I mean? I think they just wanted to get everybody there.
Well, like 2 weeks before, I mean, I can't imagine how stressful it was to make sure they had a 24 athlete lineup. Like, okay, we've got this many girls, this many guys, like we need to make that happen. And people were unsure and people were backing out. And so, I mean, that's 2 weeks is not much notice. So I think at some point you kind of just have to, I'm sure they were just like, oh, we got to say what we got to say. So, I mean, to Rea's point, that's a little frustrating because then she shows up and there's quite a bit of strength stuff. So surprise, but I mean, at the same time, I'm sure I know that was a cool thing for some of the athletes too, like to be totally surprised by some things and then to do them and feel like, oh wow, like I actually did that was pretty cool.
All right, we're gonna play a little game. We're gonna play the game called Fill in the Blank. All right, Corinna, I want you to go first.
Oh, okay.
When they announced wrestling, I was blank.
Excited. I'm thrilled. I don't know.
Because
Because I have had some experience with broken skull wrestling, and it kind of made me think of that. And I think some of the girls' reactions were so terrified that it made me a little more excited, because I was like, well, I'm excited about this. No one else seems to be, so maybe that's a good sign for me. And I have brothers, so I think they definitely have helped me be a little scrappy on the wrestling front, even though I don't have formal wrestling experience.
Okay, Rea, same question for you. When they announced wrestling, I was what?
Terrified. I was one of those people, Corinna. I was like, yes. I like at some point I was talking to Nicole, and Nicole was like, well, Nathan promised me there will be no wrestling. And I was like, okay, good. I'll come. But I feel like it was just one of those things that none of us had experience. So in a lot of the matches just came down to who's heavier. So, when you like try and like grab somebody who's like even 5 pounds more than you, it's harder to move them, and they're just going to move you. So I feel like that was kind of like just one of those things that I feel like it wasn't necessarily entirely fair. But it was like really fun to watch. So I didn't really even mind that I got eliminated in the first round. And then actually for me, once we got going, I like so didn't want to do it. And then once we got going, it was actually really fun. But the sand pit, it was like so cold that day, and the sand pit was like frozen sand, and we had to go barefoot, and my circulation already sucks, so like my feet just froze. So I tapped out of the subsequent, not that I would get anywhere further, but I tapped out of my second loss just because I was like, I don't really want to go in that pit barefoot again.
Were you the smallest athlete, Rea? Female?
Chelsea Magnus was the smallest. She's an adventure racer from Bend, and yeah, she's shorter and lighter than me. So
and Kellen Taylor was really
Kellen's really light too.
She's the marathoner, and
I just strong.
I just want to clarify, I was not excited to beat up on little like smaller people. I think they're like so it didn't. It wasn't like, oh, Ray is terrified, I can't wait to wrestle her. Like, no, there was a definitely 5 or 6 other ladies who are, like Sam Britt, Lauren Weeks, Christy Ermo, Faith, I forget Faith's last name, but like they're Emma Faith Hill, Emma Harry, like
Chapman.
Emma Harry Chapman. That's her Instagram handle. So, but yeah, like so those girls, like I knew could get scrappy and down, and I figured they would be the ones doing.
Corinna, you don't have to apologize for wanting to dominate something. It's okay. I appreciate you being nice to Rea. All right.
I didn't want to kill Rea.
Okay. All right. So Rea, I'll let you go first this time. When they announced endurance mountain bike ride, I was blank.
So excited. That was like one thing I actually trained for, and I trained for it so much. And so I was like, this is my jam. But I was also a little worried because my legs were so sore, like I like a hobble to the bicycle. So I was like, well, maybe I can still ride a bike. But my quads were like really, really sore, and I like definitely felt it on the up. But it was so amazing. Like the trails were just so beautiful, and it definitely wasn't like in the email. It was like easy, like rolling, non-technical terrain. And when I was riding that, I was like, I feel so like bad for people who that's like their first time on the bike, because it was like steep and hairpin turns, and like there weren't any rock gardens, but it was not very beginner.
All right, Corinna, what when they announced bike, was it 5 or 6 hours?
5.
5 hours. I was blank.
I was really excited. That's all I've been doing. Like, I mean, not at Rea's level, or like, this has been my first summer really getting into mountain biking here in Utah, but that has been the majority of my endurance training this entire summer. So I was really excited just to do that. I found myself in a position during the race where I just really had a lot of fun, and I wasn't like super stressed about people coming up to catch me. So where I was placed, I was just like, cool, like let me have fun with this. And it was beautiful, and I was on a really nice bike, and so yeah, I had a great time with that.
Corinna, you've done a few TV shows, right? You did Broken Skull, you did the Battle Frog College Championship, right?
Okay, count that as a TV show.
What do you mean? Of course it was. It was on.
Okay.
It was on. It was on ESPN 2 or 3 or something.
Okay.
Do you does it ever affect your performance, or do you forget about the cameras pretty quickly?
I forget about the cameras. I don't, there was a couple moments where I was like, hey, Corinna, like, we'd love to get an interview with you. And it's like on the last day, right before the last event or right before the second to last event. And I'm just like, sorry guys, I need my head focused. And I do a pretty good job of kind of blocking out the noise and that stuff so that I can stay focused. So, I don't know. I think it was cool of them to capture some different moments throughout, like, the reactions across finish lines. The moment someone starts crying or breaking down, it's like, oh, cameras in your face. So, like, and I get that. It'll be fun to watch. I just remember finishing the ultra and I didn't even think I was gonna cry, but I crossed the finish line and like my body was hurt so bad. So I like crouched down by this tree and like the cameras were way over there. And I just like didn't realize I was gonna cry, but then I just started crying and then they all came over. And I don't know, sometimes you don't really want to talk about it, but sometimes it's good to talk through the like, why am I crying? But like there's times like that where it'll make things more interesting when you watch it. But for the most part, honestly, they didn't even interview me till the last day. So I was like kind of happy about that.
Rea, did you have any tears this weekend?
Oh yeah. Last event at the end. I think it was a typical Rea finish. Can't hold her emotions anywhere. But right. I feel like it was a lot, and like the last day was especially hard for me because it was one of those things where in a way it didn't really matter if I did another day. So I really had to just do it for myself.
Because wherever you were in the standings wasn't going to move?
Yeah, I wasn't going to move very much. And it was pretty miserable out. It was cold and raining, and I already hate like doing 15 obstacles in the rain, and like 50 sounded like, or I guess it was less on the second day, it was like 20 something. Yeah. But it just like everything sounded so daunting the last day. And so I like almost didn't want to go out for the last event, and I did. And then when I finished that, it was just like super emotional and I was really tired and I cried then. But everything else was like, I was just more like super excited to be there.
Well, when I talked to Lindsay and Ryan yesterday, and they talked about I don't know what the word is because I'm bad at words, but I swear we'll fix this. We'll edit this later.
Like just how taxing it was? Are you thinking about like
the amount of energy required for strength versus endurance, and then how that worked scoring wise, and there's strategy in any game, right? And I like that. I like gamesmanship. Like even in wrestling, right? If you don't outweigh someone, there's strategy to beating that person. So it's not always the biggest guy wins. So I look at a guy like Atkins, who probably doesn't know anything but one speed. You know what I mean? Like he knows to go full out the whole time. So for you guys, again, I know you can't reveal results, but how much of that were you thinking about in terms of effort and gamesmanship when it comes to, working on your strengths, maybe stepping back a little bit where you weren't that strong because the amount of effort, there's like an equation, the amount of effort isn't going to equal, the difference isn't going to be big enough, carry the one over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I thought about that so much this weekend, but I wasn't able to put any of it into anything useful. So like when we were doing the Deca strong, I knew from the start that I wasn't gonna get very many points, and I was like, okay, don't go so hard, so like you can actually then do well on the bike. And like I trashed myself, and so it's just one of those things that I knew that maybe it would be smarter to like actually play smart, but for some reason like I couldn't do anything but all out, whatever that all out might have been on my really really sore legs. So I feel like maybe if I were smarter, I could like probably be a little less sore on the run, but I feel like it's just one of those things where you don't know. So I feel like having gone like 50% at something and then realizing if I did 100, I would have like magically placed really well. I think there's always like that, like, but there's a chance. So it's really hard to like, at least for me, to not go all out even when there is literally no chance.
like for me, I think because I kind of consider myself a hybrid athlete already between like the strength and endurance. For me, it was just staying consistent across the board, across as many events as I could. And so I think the mountain bike was the only one where I was like, cool, this is going to be my place and I don't have to work that hard. I don't have to kill myself. But pretty much every other event, like I knew I wasn't going to be the best at anything. I knew I wasn't going to be the worst at anything. So for me, I really had to push myself every single event except for the biking to make sure that I was getting as much points as possible, because it does pay to be a winner. And those the points are 25 for first place, 18 for second. Like that's a 7-point difference, whoever wins automatically. And so you can't really afford to be down on that point totem pole. And so for me, I just, there was one event where I just didn't have to wreck myself. But I think other than that, yeah, you had to kind of go really hard if you were trying to, compete in this thing.
Yeah, to put it in context for regular people, I learned this the hard way because, I've slow jogged a lot of events because they're fun and I'm just out with my friends, and you can slow jog. You can burn yourself out on a half marathon, or you can slow jog it and like enjoy your turkey trot, right? But if you're doing high rocks, you can't slow jog pushing a 300-pound sled. Like there's like, you can break up the time it takes you, but it's max effort every time. And so I certainly was thinking about that with you guys and people having these different strengths. And Ryan and Lindsay thought it might have catered to the strength athlete for that reason, because they were saying that Hunter, for example, didn't have to push himself as hard. But I've already heard from other people that he did. And again, we're gonna see how it works out. But I think to me, I'm most looking forward to seeing how they break down the scoring and the wrestling. Those are the two things I'm most excited to watch.
What do you mean on the scoring? Like, what do you mean?
Well, that's what everybody wants to know, right? Is how do you compare somebody throwing heavy rocks versus running 6 hours? Like, how do you compare those things? So, if you're saying scoring was equivalent, like 25 to 12, and then like if you're below 12, there's no points. Was that the same for every single event?
Every event. So I feel like that was like a little like unfair for like endurance athletes, because to like win a 6-hour run, it takes a lot more toll on your body and a little bit longer to recover from than it does if you like win like like wrestling or tug of war or things like that, where I feel like your body, like how much you weigh and how strong you are, is like already like quite an advantage. It isn't a disadvantage then when you have to go for a very long run, but there was like a way to go shorter on that. So you could just like hike the whole thing, and I think you would still finish in time, or like hike, jog it. So I feel like there was a little bit of that where I didn't think necessarily that it was like really fair to everybody. But like they did like change. I feel like they just had like not a lot of time to figure that out. So I feel like they did really great with what they had. And like when the last Deca strong was like the second station was like 160-pound deadlift, and I think my PR when I was actually doing deadlifts was like 95 pounds. So it's like there's no way. And the original rule was like if you don't make it, you just get 0 points. But then they changed it to the point where you get like a 10-minute penalty if you can't do it. So they kind of changed the rules when they realized that it would like take some people out of the game completely.
Right.
Hopefully next year it's gonna be, if there is next year, it's gonna be different.
Yeah, I definitely, for all the criticism I give Spartan, I definitely think this is one of those things that you have to do the event to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And then realize like in the field, okay, we need to change this. I mean, even OCR Worlds has done that, right? Where they had to change an obstacle, right? Because there's too much failure rate or whatever. Like I give them some leeway there. In many ways, I'm hoping they do this again. But I think about what they're already committed to, right? Spartan World Championship, Trifecta World Championship, Ultra World Championship, like big events at the end of the year. I don't know how they would do this year in, year out. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the response has been so, and maybe it's because there's nothing else going on and like it's COVID, like everything has been canceled, but I think the response has been really awesome from just the stuff that they've put out so far. So I don't know. When I think of this, I kind of like, wow, this is like the first CrossFit Games of like for Spartan. Like the first year, everyone came out to Dave Castro's farm, and it was really small. And look back to it, and be like, wow, like we lifted such little weight and all this stuff. And then and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's the huge CrossFit Games that everyone knows about. And so I see this being really big for Spartan, and something that it would be very in their best interest to continue for yearly.
But I feel like the athletes would be very different next year if all the other events do happen, because there's no way you can be ready for a 24-hour race and ready for this event at the same time and do both and survive. So I feel like it will kind of pick the athletes from the ones that are not doing the other big events, at least the ones that are very different from the Spartan Games.
Yeah, and they did slap this together pretty quickly, right? It seems like 2 to 3 months from when they started talking about it to execution. You mentioned the athletes not getting picked in time. I honestly didn't think they were going to make it. I was like they're trying to go after these people. They're going to just get a bunch of B team Spartan pros. All right, we're just going to reach out to Nick Riker and be like, all right, can you come? Because we need a 12th man, No offense, Nick. We love you.
Some guys got found out the Monday before, they arrived today and they didn't know they were doing it till Monday. So yeah, what I think would be interesting is are they going to do a qualification? Because CrossFit, it's maybe the first year was invite, but I feel like in order to crown the fittest on earth, if that's what they want to do, it can't just be invite only. So maybe it's if you win a Spartan race, or if you win a DecaFit, or something like a sanctional type deal where, hey, this qualifies you, or top 10 or something. But, I think this year that made sense to do invite, but there's got to be some sort of qualification so that people can, but at the same time, it's then how are you going to get the triathletes? How are you going to get the CrossFitters? So I don't know, that's something that they'll probably have to think about, but I do think some sort of qualification would
I feel like something what CrossFit does is where you have these workouts you do, something like that kind of gives you a sense of what's going to be at the games. So you're ready for 160-pound deadlift and running 6 hours and things like that.
Thanks so much for watching. If you go to the last 4 or 5 videos, you'll catch a bunch more interviews we did this weekend. We had Ryan and Lindsay on. We had Nicole Miracle on. We had Aaron Newell on. We had Joe on at the beginning of the week. And also, if you're new to this channel, we'll let you know that we have lots of great stuff on the website. We do a podcast multiple times a week. There's a lot of great stuff here at Obstacle Racing Media. So thanks so much for tuning in. If you'd like to support us, if you've been a new fan or an old fan, check out our Patreon. Links below on that. For as little as $2 a month, you will get all this free content you already get, right, which we already put out, plus we'll give you some special stuff. We'll give you some early access stuff. We'll give you some Patreon-only stuff. We'll give you some group fun stuff we do as a little clan, those of us that little Patreon, little house of Patreon that we are. Thank you so much. Love you. Miss you. Mean it. I've got to run.